I got into being a baker because when I moved to Chicago, I really missed the bread that I'd been eating on the West Coast. So I taught myself how to make bread, spending lots of hours working on bread and reading about bread and visiting bakeries and getting in touch with friends that had bakeries in Seattle and going to France and just really becoming obsessed with bread. I went to culinary school and I studied savory food. And honestly, I didn't like the baker's hours, so I preferred restaurant work to working in a bakery. And then when I moved here, I needed different hours because I had a young son, and the restaurant hours were no longer going to fit my lifestyle, and then the baker's hours kind of fit my lifestyle. So I morphed into a baker. When I started out baking here several years ago, it was really hard for me to have access to local flour to use at home. Most of the places, the farms wouldn't work with me because I was a little bit too small, but I needed to buy 50-pound bags. And so I started out using kind of just whatever flour I could get. And then, but I was always really focused on working with small local farms. It was just really hard as the home cook to get access to that. But I know from having spent time in Seattle and working with different farmers and grain farmers, where I had worked with those grains before on the West Coast, and so it was always my passion to get back into that and help develop the grain industry for wheat in this area once I was able to. I met Andy at the Good Food Festival, and she had a booth, and I saw her packaging of her grains, and I hadn't seen anybody else with grains like that. And I was literally just drawn to her, started talking to her, and my bakery was really small, and I knew that she didn't have a ton of production either. She was just starting out her organic farming, and I kind of just was like, we need to work together. This is like both of us starting out, being women in this business as well, being a grain farmer. There's not a lot of female grain farmers, and she'll tell you about the tractors and stuff being built for men and how she has to work with that. And the same is true for women in even food industry, but then in baking, we're kind of a smaller minority. So we just both had this shared passion of really, it was all about bringing back the different varieties that had been grown in the Midwest, basically, 100 years ago, right around the time that the train lines, in the 1840s, there was a lot more variety of wheat than what we have today. Our biggest market where we sell is our retail right now, where customers come in and buy direct from us. But what's really kind of fun is the restaurants that we work with, they are all in our community too. So it's almost like it's like this big web that we have, because people will go to Found or to Boltwood and eat the bread there, and we do kind of specific breads for those places, and they'll come in and be like, we want that Boltwood loaf. And so they come in, and we're small enough that we make a few of the Boltwood loaves to sell, so it's really all interconnected, but the bulk of our sales are through direct to our customers.
I kind of fell into this business. I was a customer of Ellen's when she was doing her underground bread baking club out of her house. Our kids went to school together, and I had heard about this woman who was baking this amazing bread, but you had to be part of the club to get the bread. And so I asked around, and sure enough, we wound up meeting, and it was the best bread I had ever tasted in my life. I love bread, but this was the best bread I'd ever had. So she let me in to her club. I started getting bread by the week, and we became friends, and our kids going to school together were friends, so we wound up going to a Cubs game one day, and we're talking there, because at that time the Cubs were not good. They are this year, but they weren't doing very well that year, so the game was kind of slow, and we were just talking. And I said to her, well, why don't you open up a business? I mean, you should sell this bread to so many more people. There's nothing like this in this part of Chicago. And then 6 months later, we had formed an LLC, and in June of 2013, we opened the store. So it went very quickly, but that sometimes is better, I think. It allows you to just keep moving and not think too much. Otherwise, you get too scared. My experience with food was limited to working at a pizza place in college, where I threw pizzas in the air and sold them to people. No, I have a master's in school counseling from Loyola University Chicago, and I worked at Loyola Academy as the director of guidance. Ellen jokes that my skills working with people are probably even more valuable in her mind than other things. So I think we kind of balance each other well in that respect. We've been fortunate to have a lot of people who've given us some great advice and counsel, and I'm always open to that. I did have some design experience by working with other projects, construction, etc., so I was really interested in that. So we've learned a lot, let's just say, in the past 2 years. We're always committed to using organic products in all of our food. That's why all of our flour is organic, all the ingredients we use, butter, etc. It's one thing to do that, and then it's another thing to make a commitment to buy things locally as much as possible. When we first opened, I would take my kids with me to the Evanston Farmers Market with their wagon, and we would just load up on ingredients there and bring them back to the store. We started working with some local farmers because we were searching for flour that was close by. Ellen was able to meet with Andy Hazard of Hazard Free Farms. They hit it off right away and have a shared passion for bringing back ancient grains that haven't been grown in the Midwest for over 100 years. So that has become a big part of our business, trying to promote that and use it as much as possible. It's not easy because it's in such short supply. So we do what we can to make that work.
Using organic is not even a thought. I mean, it's just what we have to do here because, in particular, wheat is something that's so industrialized that it's something, our bread wouldn't turn out if we didn't use an organic flour because of the process of how we use it. We use a starter, which is a living yeast. And so to use conventional flour, it almost would kill it. The flavors wouldn't develop. So using organic and local flour that's milled very quickly and we use it it's hewn. It has to be. We can't use anything other.
It's been a bit of a learning curve for our customers to understand what our costs might be and why a loaf of bread might be $6, $7, or sometimes even $9, depending on the flour that we're using. But a bag of organic flour costs more than twice as much as a bag of regular commercial flour. So it's not as though we're making a huge profit on this. It's about quality ingredients. And I think once our customers try our products, try our breads, it's hard for them to go back.
Part of what we do is education, and part of that, I guess, is we both have a good education background. That it's a long process to teach people why we're different, where our grains come from. We don't have signs all saying organic this or organic that, because I feel like the organic label has become so diluted. Once it became a federal standard, that actually took it away from the farmers that were growing organically but didn't have the label. And that label, to me, is almost cost prohibitive for some farmers. So it's about us educating our farmers that, yeah, maybe it's not a certified organic, but I know the farmer growing it. I know Andy's growing some of our grains, and she's farming more organic than the certified organic in a lot of cases. And so we teach our customers that, and they're really receptive, and it's almost so confusing for them because they're like, well, it's not labeled organic. And we get this label that really, in the early 2000s when it became the federal label, it lost its true value because a lot of the farmers couldn't support to do the paperwork needed and the cost for it. So a large portion of our day is spent teaching them about why our bread's different, why our flour is different, where it comes from, and then that gets into that whole gluten sensitivity and why we don't do anything gluten-free here. And that is a whole nother level of education. Our bread is great to eat because of the farmers. It's not us. It's not what we're doing. It's the farmers. They're the ones that are doing this for. I mean, it's a 9-month process essentially for these farmers to get 1 50-pound bag of wheat. It's like a 9-month journey, and people forget that it there's a lot of crop failure. There's winds that come in and knock the crops over. I mean, it was enlightening to me when I went out and visited Andy, and I was looking at our einkorn, and it was all toppled over. And in my mind, I was like, oh, well, you're just going to use it anyhow. She's like, no, that crop's lost. And it was just this sense of, it's lost, it didn't work. And I thought, that's all your pine corn? Like, what do you mean? And it was just this, she wasn't attached to it. It was a devastating loss, but what do you do? That's farming. And for us, if I had a day where my whole product was wasted, that's,
It would not be a good day.
it wouldn't be a good week.
No, it would be bad.
You know, and she just was kind of just took it in stride, and we forget how much goes in to the growing of grains. Grains in particular, I call Andy my unicorn, because nobody ever sees a unicorn, nobody ever sees their grain farmer, right? You know who grows your tomatoes, you know now you do. You didn't used to, but now you know who grows your tomatoes, you know who grows your lettuce. But your grains, we don't expect to know who grew our flour, essentially. And I think that's what's so special about working with Andy and some of the other local farmers that we work with, is I don't want it to be me that's getting this recognition because it's them that's growing this that should get it. So that's why we like to say that this is Hazard Free Farms polenta or Lonesome Stone's whole wheat. And we call it our Lonesome Stone whole wheat because Gil works really hard to mill this, and he works with his farmers. And so it's not us taking this glory, it's like us bringing them to the forefront so that people go to a store and see Lonesome Stone and are like, I'll pay $10 for that because I know that it's grown in Wisconsin and Gil mills it. And it's not just some generic flour that we've gotten used to eating. And that's, I think, the biggest shame is we don't expect our flour to have taste.